Repco Supercars Championship star Cam Waters will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut on June 9th at Sonoma Raceway. Waters will drive the number 60 Ford for RFK Racing as part of the Stage 60 program. BuildSubmarines.com will sponsor the car, highlighting AUKUS, which is a trilateral security partnership between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The Tickford Racing regular has competed in 2 Truck Series races with Motorsport Racing, those being Martinsville and Kansas. Waters called the opportunity to race in the Cup Series a dream come true, and he's excited to put his road course racing skills to the test after racing on 2 ovals in the Truck Series. Graphic on your screen, courtesy of RFK Racing. Now, we also have another Supercars regular coming over. Will Brown announced a short while ago that he's making his Cup Series debut at Sonoma as well with Richard Childress Racing. Matt, what do you expect from both Supercars regulars in their Cup debuts, and could the additional NASCAR starts for Waters mean that we'll eventually see him leave Supercars and come stateside?
The Australian invasion continues, doesn't it, with the Kiwi, Van Gisbergen last year and Brody Kostecki, and now we're getting Cam Waters and Will Brown. Excited for both of them to see how they go. Of course, as you mentioned, Ben, we've seen Cam already stateside this year with his runs at Martinsville and at Kansas, but this is something very different, and a track he obviously doesn't know, in a setup, I guess, with the car that he won't know either. But as we saw with both those guys last year, SVG and Brody, it didn't take them long to get up to speed, and Brody had a good run in his only start at Indy on the road course. So 2 very talented guys, race winners, both of them in the Supercars Championship, and of course, as you mentioned, Will Brown, the current points leader, going into this weekend's round at Perth. So very excited to see how they do. Will this be a bit of a fun day out for both of them? And if they're both racing for the win at the end, that'll be interesting. It could happen, you never know. Let's see. I mean, good to see that RFK have took up the mantle from Trackhouse with their project car that since Van Gisbergen won in it, that's gone away, hasn't it? It's not been mentioned since. So it looks like Brad and team down there at RFK have picked up the mantle of having the guest car, potentially. We'll see if that continues through the year, in a big week for them, of course, as well. So yeah, very excited to see both Waters and Brown coming across to mix it up with NASCAR's best.
Yeah, well, 2311 too. They've had their third car.
Yeah, cool.
Kobe's going to follow up with that here a little bit later on in the show. But Corey Hahn getting in that seat, and the 50/67. You think back to a couple races they did last year. So we'll see if the Project 91 car comes back. But in the meantime, we have the Stage 60 and the 50 for 2311 holding down the fort for those extra cars for us. Adam Lemmeries, can't wait to see Cam Waters and Will Brown at Sonoma. Going to be awesome. Fingers crossed, all goes according to plan. I will be there with Brock Beard, and we'll be sure to keep an eye on that. Hopefully, for their sake, he's not writing an article on them at the end of the Cup Series race. But sure, there's gonna be a lot of eyes on those 2 drivers for sure as they make their Cup debuts. But Matt, just to follow up, I know we were talking about this a little bit backstage, but what is it that's going on in Supercars right now that you think is causing this invasion from down under with so many of these stars coming over? Obviously, SVG winning at Chicago, I think, opened the floodgates for that. But you know, we saw it with Marcus Ambrose, you know, a little more than a decade ago. He had some modest success here, but there's recently been, I guess, 4 now drivers that have come over and tried their hand in NASCAR Cup. What do you think it is? Is it the fact that the next gen car resembles the new Gen 3 car in Supercars, or do you think it's the current state of a series that's leading them over here to give NASCAR a try?
Yeah, I guess Ambrose was a bit of an outlier, wasn't he? He was on his own there in the mid to late 2000s and such like. And then we've had a bit of a lull in it. But now what we had, the last 2 champions and the current points leader coming across in the space of 12 months, plus Cam Waters. What is it? I don't know. The new gen cars, that they're not new anymore for both of them, really, for Supercars and for the Cup Series, are quite similar in design and how they drive. So that's one thing. But I think the main thing is the calendar. Supercars calendar down to 11 events this year. The fifth one of it, coming up this weekend at Perth. We'll get to that when we get to pick a winner later on. But then they've got another month off again until they're back in action next. So there's these huge, massive gaps in between the calendar, and these guys just want to race. And outside of with NASCAR, I guess we've got Cup, Trucks, Xfinity all on the same weekend or or intermingling with each other. Whereas once there's no supercars on in Australia, really there isn't another high level series that they could go and run in. Of course, we've seen Brown and Mostert this year already running GT World Challenge Australia at Phillip Island last month. Mostert winning one of those races. He'll be the next one. If there's going to be another one to come, it'll be Chazzy. He's done some other GT Challenge races out in Europe. He did Spa a couple of years ago for the 24 hours as well. So they're always looking for more opportunities to drive, and that was one of Shane's big points, wasn't it, when he came over or when the announcements got made last year? He just can be driving every week pretty much for the whole year. So that's what these guys want to do, and it's just another thing for supercars. I've mentioned this every time we've talked about this kind of stories. They've got a chance here of losing all of their top guys, and they need to get their ship in order pretty quickly to stop that from happening potentially. And Cam has expressed a dream or opportunities if they arose to come over and do NASCAR full time. So obviously we add McLaughlin into that mix as well as another supercars refugee in the IndyCar paddock for what's now 3 or 4 years. So they are losing the big names in supercars, and that is a bit of a worry.